Okay, good evening everybody. Welcome to our first ordinary meeting for 2026, the February meeting of Council. Welcome to the gallery we have this evening, joined here by General Manager Ross, Director Rule and Director Gunn. Could we open the meeting by asking the General Manager to make announcements regarding the live streaming, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The meeting is being live streamed and or recorded for on-demand viewing via Council's website. Attendance at the meeting is to be taken as consent by a person to their image and or voice being webcast. All speakers should refrain from making any defamatory comments or releasing personal information about another individual without their consent. Council accepts no liability for any damage that may result in the defamatory comments made by persons attending meetings. All liability will rest with the individual who made the comments. The meeting must not be recorded by others without prior written consent of Council in accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice. Councillors and staff are obligated to declare conflicts of interest as required under the Local Government Act and the Council's adopted Code of Conduct. Councillors are reminded of their oath of office whereby they have declared and affirmed that they will undertake the duties of the office of Councillor in the best interests of the people of Wentworth Shire and the Wentworth Shire Council, and they will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretion vested in them under the Local Government Act or any other act to the best of their ability and judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Those who are willing and able, could you please stand for prayer and acknowledgement of country? We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we live and work and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Councillors, let us in silence reflect upon our responsibilities to the community which we represent and to all future generations, and faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in us to the best of our skill and judgment. Thank you. Now, we have a full house, so there are no apologies. Are there any applications for leave of absence? There are none. I'll move to item 4. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Starrick.
I have a interest in item 9.12. It's non-pecuniary but significant, as I sit on the board as an observer of the Australian Inland Botanic Gardens.
Thank you. Councillor Rodder.
So I also have a non-pecuniary interest in item 9.12, as I'm the treasurer for the Magenta Art Prize.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
I have non-pecuniary interest in item 913, which is the application for funding Country Music Festival.
Thank you. Any further? I have one. Item 12.2, I declare a non-pecuniary but significant interest as a relative of the acquiring applicant. So that is item 12.2. Nothing further. We'll move on to item 5, please. Confirmation of the minutes. Would someone like to move? Councillor Rodder, seconded Councillor Nichols. Anyone like to speak to that motion? All those in favour of adopting the minutes of the previous meeting, December 2025? Thank you. That's carried. Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the late agenda item for the meeting be admitted, and it's a development application to be considered.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded? Councillor Rodder. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Move to item 6.1, the status report on previous council resolutions. Would someone like to move the recommendation for noting? Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Starrick. Anyone wish to speak to this motion? Those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. We will move to item 7.1. I move my report with the following tweaks. Sorry, Gail. The flood study drop-in session on the 11th of Feb, I did not make it back from Menindee in time to attend that. But I did attend an additional meeting, the Neighbourhood Watch meeting at Gareton on the 17th of Feb. Seek a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Rodder. Any questions? Put the motion, those in favour? Thank you, that is carried unanimously. We will move on to item 8.1, reports from committees, Heritage and History Advisory Committee meeting. Would someone like to move? Councillor Nichols, thank you.
I'd like to move the recommendation, thank you.
Thank you. And seconder, Councillor Rodder. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak against the motion, which I'll apologise for, but I'm going to explain why as we go through. Under the new Code of Conduct, there are rules of debate, and as I understand, you can't ask a question outside of the debate. So in order to have get my question addressed, I'll need to oppose the motion, and then hopefully a subsequent speaker from council will be able to answer that question. Leading up, I'd prefer a collegiate approach to decision making, but the Code of Conduct, which we had a lot to say about and we're stuck with, supports adversarial and contextual debate. So, and so in my view, supports conflict over collaboration and division over consensus. So real success, I believe, is via negotiation, not with debate, as to where one is victor over another. So all the question I wish to ask is of some subsequent speaker, the motion that was agreed to in the minutes at the end, which is on page 5 or page 54, and that recommendation is that the future of the Ruby be provided at the March meeting of Council following evaluation and discussions on various reports provided. By whom? Is the Heritage Committee going to meet again and provide some opinions or results, or is it to be Council, which would mean it would be our staff preparing it, and how they'd be resourced? So I just really need that motion by someone who was at the meeting tightened up so we can understand better what's going to be presented at the March meeting and by whom.
Thank you, Councillor Crisp. There were two councillors present on the committee meeting. So I think you had the call first, Councillor Nichols.
The Heritage Committee did put forward their recommendations, and I read 2 recommendations in here somewhere. They prefer to come to council for council's final authorisation on what their recommendations were. One was to be static, the other was that it float. And I think the Heritage...
Mr Mayor, with due respect, we can't hear what's being said.
Sorry if I speak too loud. I said the recommendation for the Heritage Committee actually, I believe, was static. Just to be a static display. And I've read the paperwork in here somewhere and the other recommendation was that it go to it float up and down the river.
There is a separate motion, notice of motion,
Yes.
dealing with this, but I think Councillor Crisp's question is regarding the adopted resolution of the committee meeting. Councillor Evans, do you wish to add to that as the other committee member, councillor?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I do have a it perhaps leads to a little confusion, but the committee met on the 24th of July 2024, and these issues were discussed, and there was a process there undertaken to move forward with the heritage listing of the ruby. What I'm considering here is that the appropriate evaluation and discussing on various reports were only handed to that committee at the last meeting, this meeting that was held. So the reports weren't issued to those members of the committee until such time as the second meeting was available to analyse those. So the idea was to go away and have another look at those reports, which of course included survey reports and other issues that came up regarding the ruby. Those reports were forwarded to members of the committee prior to the December meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Beaumont.
Yes, just to seek further clarification, I guess. But before I start, I think Councillor Crisp, you were in the room as an observer at the meeting of the 15th of December. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that's correct.
Yes, thank you. So if we go back to the inaugural meeting of the Heritage and History Advisory Committee, which was on the 24th of July 2024, some almost, well, 3 months ago, getting on to 2 years ago, the committee recommendations at the time were to apply to Heritage New South Wales to have the PS Ruby registered as a state heritage item. Now, as I say, that's 20 months ago. That has not occurred, or certainly had not occurred, as at the more recent meeting of the 15th of December 2025. Part B of the recommendation was to investigate funding opportunities to support future preservation of the PS Ruby. Now, in this intervening period, I'm not aware of any, as a council, I'm not aware of any investigations that might have taken place.
So, Councillor Beaumont, I'll just intervene here. Are you speaking in response to Councillor Crisp's question? Councillor Crisp's question was about Part B of the resolution, which is what is to be provided for the March meeting and by whom. So that's what we're dealing with at the moment. Okay. If you wish to speak in favour of this motion,
well, I guess I'm leading up to the point in that there is history in relation to the inauguration of the establishment of the Heritage and History Advisory Committee. They have had very little opportunity to meet, to discuss anything in relation to heritage or history, let alone the ruby. And I think that having this body, advisory body, we should be going down the path of enabling that body to consider the various reports, particularly in relation to the ruby, as it's the topic of discussion, and coming back to council with a recommendation. I think that's the intent of everything that's happened to this point. And why would you have a Heritage and History Advisory Committee if you do not give them the opportunity to consider these matters and come back to council with a recommendation? Then it's up to council to move forward on that or another recommendation.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Beaumont. I think that partially goes to your question. I mean, the committee did meet, and the nature of the question is what specifically is supposed to happen before the March meeting, I guess, from a reading of the resolution as we have it minuted. So I think everything you've contributed, Councillor Beaumont, fits within the realm of possibilities of what that committee can do. And if it was the intention of the committee to meet again and to assess some of those reports, I guess that goes to responding to your question. As I read in the minutes, the committee has not selected another meeting date at this point. It's TBC.
Waiting for an outcome from this meeting here. As soon as possible after.
Council to determine, or management to determine the date for the next advisory committee meeting.
I might just add to the discussion.
Certainly, gentlemen.
So I accept the discussion around
clear guidance on what it's recommending to council to do. So therefore, a March timeline for council might be a little bit tricky. Councillor Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, through you, if I may, to the chair or deputy chair of the committee, is part B of the recommendation, is that meant to address the second dot point immediately above the recommendation on page 53 of the agenda, that the PS Ruby be permanently converted to a static display item floating on land base? Through you, Mr. Mayor, too.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
The way I see it here is that we have adopted a motion which has effectively bypassed that recommendation. So I think that's what I see as being the issue, and that's why I suggested it's a little confusing. But the committee did not want to follow the line of making that decision at that meeting, whether it be floating or land based, because it has the word static there, and so that was a word that was not wanting to be addressed at that time because we didn't have enough information. We didn't want to set a pathway that was irretrievable at that time. So there's probably that's obviously a motion that was put up as to cover that recommendation B.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Evans. Councillor Beaumont, you want to respond to Councillor Armstrong's question?
Yes, and by way of comment, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Page 53, which represents the minutes of the Heritage and History Advisory Committee. These are the minutes of that meeting.
Yes.
So that the recommendation on page 154, which says that a recommendation on the future of the Ruby be provided to the March meeting of council, is saying it's that committee to provide a recommendation to council. So I think that's quite clear. That's their minutes. So really, the motion as written at page 57, I think, is clear, that a recommendation on the future of the Ruby be provided to the March meeting of council. Now, so logically from that, there needs to be a date set for the next Heritage and History Advisory Committee meeting so that their recommendation can be formed and brought to council. Now, March is around the corner, so it might be pushing the envelope a bit. Perhaps it needs to be April. But to me, that's the logical step.
Yeah, I tend to agree that certainly a step in the logical direction would be to have another committee meeting to, if nothing else, clear up the ambiguity that I think is still there in spite of your clarification. So I think we can choose to endorse the minutes on the proviso that the Heritage and History Committee do meet again, which obviously is their intent, and that I'd just suggest that the March date for all parties involved may not be practical. That's all. So I think so long as we note that in endorsing the minutes, that's probably the way to go forward. Councillor Beaumont.
Yeah, so having said that, I think we do need to set a date, a timeline, so it doesn't drift out to become April, May, June, July, whatever. I think we need to set a date for it to come back to council by April. That would probably allow us time to call a meeting and have that committee, that advisory committee, meet.
I'm sure
The other aspect to it too is that the advisory committee is, these are community members that get to speak on behalf of the community as well, and I think it's important to have a community voice considered in amongst all of this as well.
Oh, very much so, and that's why that's where the ambiguity arises, I think, is that to get the batting order right, you want to have a pretty clear recommendation come from the committee, which, with respect, I don't think we have right now. So I think we need another History and Heritage Committee Advisory Committee meeting called, and I think the General Manager's outlined that's a matter for that committee, so that can be done as soon as practicable, and then we can argue the toss around how do you fit that into the soonest council meeting, which in all reality is not going to be March, is it?
I think if the meeting is called by council, it will happen in March and it'll be certainly there by April, because I believe that the recommendation on page 53 is a clear directive of the committee wants. A clear, very, very clear directive. There's nothing there that says an application be lodged with Heritage New South Wales. The lodge, we haven't done it, so that needs to happen. Council needs to agree to do that, and the room would be permanently converted to a static display, floating or landward based. So I think the recommendation's there. If you wanted to go back to the committee to re-recommend the same thing over again, it'll take another month, and we can do the same thing.
Thanks, Councillor Nichols. All right, we might.
Can I just
Councillor Evans.
add just one thing? I think there's little point. It was my first meeting with the Heritage and History and Heritage Advisory Committee. I felt the information we had was pretty thin on the ground for me personally. I now took on the role of Deputy Chair, of course, and I think primarily we're going to be looking at how the result works for the Ruby in regard to its state heritage listing. So the timeline there is an open timeline, and I'm not sure that the committee can make a decision until that decision has been forwarded to us.
In that case, would someone like to?
I might just say, because they will have rules and they will have, there will be, I guess, an understanding as to how we're going to manage the vessel from here on in regarding if we say it's going to be a static display sitting up on the bank, for example, land-based, that may not fit into their heritage listing arrangements. If it's a vessel and it's floating, it may have a different category that it falls into. So there's quite a lot of questions to be asked and answered yet.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. I think the recommendation that we're dealing with is that states in Part B that a recommendation on the future of the PS Ruby be provided at the March meeting of Council. So I'd suggest, given everything that's been discussed, that somebody may want to amend that time frame. Councillor Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, I would move an amendment that at this time removes item B from the recommendation. So it's just that Council endorses the recommendation of the committee that an application be lodged with Heritage New South Wales to list the PS Ruby as a state heritage item. And if I could have a seconder for that, I would give some reasons why I would move that amendment.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Councillor Crisp. Just taking on board what Councillor Evans has said about the requirements set under the heritage listing by the Heritage Board of New South Wales, and Heritage New South Wales will give direction in what we can pursue in terms of a display or the future of the Ruby, right? If they come back and say, yep, we're happy to grant you heritage listing as long as it's floating, right? But we at this meeting determine that it needs to be static on the ground, then we are left with a conundrum, I think. Just by moving A at this time and then having the committee go away without a set time to come back to us, I trust the committee will do their work over the next couple of months. But I think just for neatness and appropriateness of where everything is up to at this time, I think just moving with item A of the recommendation at this time is probably the appropriate move.
Thanks, Councillor Armstrong. Anyone like to speak against the amendment? I'll put the amendment. Those in favour? The amendment is carried unanimously and becomes the motion. Would anyone like to speak to the motion? Speak against? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Okey-dokey. We'll move along now to item 9.1, General Manager's Report. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Rodder, seconded Councillor Armstrong. Does anyone like to speak to the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. Item 9.2, Wentworth Pioneer Homes request for financial assistance. Councillor Crisp is on his feet. Are you moving recommendation?
I wish to move the council adopt recommendation A.
Is that seconded? Councillor Beaumont? Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a prudent process for council to go through. We are in budget build-up now, and this does have, but the application has budget impacts over 3 years, and I think we need to factor that in, and the word following a budget review covers that. So I think this is just a prudent action at this time in our financial preparations.
Thank you, Councillor Crisp. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Starrick.
Without understanding more detail with regard to the flow-on impacts, because it's not currently within our budget, and because there is the potential that other projects will be impacted and postponed in order to make room for this, I'd want to understand the potential community impact of postponing before I say yes, I'm committed to supporting the project. So that's pretty much where I'm at. I just want to understand more before I say yes. The way that the resolution is written is that there is a default understanding of some funding that is triggering the budget review. So it reads to me like there's a default full funding or partial funding, but not a nil funding in the way that the resolution is written. So that's where my concern lies.
So my reading is the only default position is if you were to refuse, i.e. Part B today, it talks about the proposal will be tabled for consideration following the review. And of course, the consideration could be a whole range from 0 to something greater than 0.
And my only concern is that the motion as it written doesn't give that range starting from 0 up to the full funding amount requested. That's the extent of my concern.
Yeah, given that a future resolution though would have to be debated just as this is, and so could be.
And that would be welcome. That would absolutely be welcome. I'm just calling it out that there is a potential, community impact, and that the way that it was written, it wasn't clear to me. It was also not clear to me how this particular project, in the context of our strategic plan, how does that fit in? Which categories does that fit in with our existing community plan? And what bucket does that fit into? Because I'm assuming by virtue of the fact that it's come as a independent report, it's not being absorbed into our usual community funding. So it's coming through over and above that usual community funding. But I love the project, and I'm fully aware of the need for housing to support our elderly, particularly when they are low income. My question is about where does council's role fit in the support of that project in the context of our strategic plan, and how other potential projects could be impacted.
Thanks, Councillor Starrick. Councillor Starrick has couched some questions within her contribution. Would anyone like to respond to that, or I'll move on and seek another speaker? Anything to add, General Manager?
No. I mean, they're all valid questions which is part of the review of the budget and the financial review. But, the default position is also to be the review from 0 to what he's requesting. So it's really with Director Rule and us to sit down and do that long-term financial planning aspect of it to give a surety to you, Councillor Starrick, that that's fair and reasonable, and the community are represented well in that aspect of aged and disability housing is a component within which this request comes within that of our community strategic plan. So it's preempting, sorry, just to take one step further, preempting a question later on, Director Rule and I were talking about the budget preparation and information sharing and deliberation over that, and he's agreed that on his next return visit up here next meeting we'll be undertaking that. So that may very well be the time frame of the consideration, the deliberation.
Thank you, General Manager. The next speaker, Councillor Rodder, are you speaking for or against the motion?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, in regards to Councillor Starrick's point, so if the recommendation read will consider funding the proposal from Wentworth Pioneer, remove the funding or partially funding, that would actually open the recommendation up to be 0, because actually at the moment the way that it does read, and I understand what...
Are you proposing an amendment, Councillor Rodder?
I'm asking a question through you if Councillor Starrick would be more comfortable with that if that recommendation was changed.
Absolutely. And I'd
So someone can propose an amendment, otherwise we're dealing with...
propose the amendment. Yep, I'd propose the amendment even as articulated by Councillor Rodder. And that would satisfy my...
For clarity for the minute takers, it will be by deleting funding or partially funding. So
Yes.
It'll read, we'll consider the proposal from Wentworth Pioneer Homes Committee, including incorporated following a budget review. And to the end of that.
Thank you. So Councillor Starrick, you're taking carriage of that
Yes.
amendment. I'll seek a seconder. Councillor Rodder, thank you. We're now debating the amendment. Would someone like to speak for the amendment?
Oh, it's really going to.
Councillor Rodder.
So I think removing, slightly amending that recommendation removes the ambiguity from that, and we can still consider partially or fully funding or no funding, which is what I think Councillor Starrick was concerned about. So I think that adequately still provides us with the opportunity to review.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. Anyone wish to speak against the amendment?
I'm not actually against. I understand where Jodie's coming from. And every time we do a budget, it's likely to change any time because we think we're going to get so much in interest from our loans. That doesn't always happen. It's happened this month. Or we think some a project's going to cost so much, and then all of a sudden we find we're $100,000 out or $200,000. We find the money to do that. So it's one of those things that, I looked at this and thought, you're looking at the length of time. If you go by the figures, it's only something like $2,000 a month that brings in actually, if you look at the rent figures. So, it's. I think we look at it because we look at Murray House and all those other things every year. So.
Thanks, Councillor Nichols.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm going to put the amendment. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously, so the amendment becomes the motion. Do we need any further speakers for the motion? Speakers against? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Item 9.3, use of planning consultants.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just correct I was the member.
Oh, the other way around, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Starrick. We're dealing with item 9.3 and seeking a mover. Councillor Armstrong. As written, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Bowman. Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Any? Councillor Bowman.
Yep. So I understand we have a number of vacancies in the council planning office, so I think it's from what's written here, it's 3, it's correct. I would like a couple of questions. I'd like to know where we're at in terms of the recruitment process. Do we have applications in yet, or are we not that far advanced? And second question would be, is this recommendation applicable to the end of this financial year, or are you feeling it would go beyond? Because I would be thinking it would be till the 30th of June.
General Manager.
First point, positions as advertised were for 2 managers' roles closed on Monday of this week, for which one of the roles will find candidates for interview and one of the roles we won't. So the planning role will be having candidates for interview, and the building and regulatory services one won't be having. There's nil applicants. In relation to the longevity of this, obviously, we want to recruit, and we want to do that sooner rather than later. The sooner we get a manager in, the lesser implications or the obligations to use consultancies. So, 30th of June is probably about that number, I would have thought.
Okay, so we would consider the 30th of June as an end date for this request. And if need, General Manager would come back with a further request for an extension.
The timing, Rob?
As far as the 30th of June. I think that's sort of what we were thinking, yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Thanks, Councillor Beaumont. Councillor Goddard.
In regards to spending that amount of money on external consultants, has there been any consideration to actually adjusting the salary package for those positions to make them a little more attractive? Because clearly they're not. There's no buy-in. We've been on this merry-go-round for a little while now.
Yes, definitely is the answer to your question. That's why we went out to external consultancies, to attract wider expanse of applicants, with the brief of, in essence, get someone on the hook and don't tell them that we're just restricted to band and level. We can talk about other applicant attraction initiatives. So yeah, the answer to the question is it's not just slotting into a box. There's opportunity for scope of attraction.
Clearly we're struggling, and rather than spend that much money on consultants, whether we just offer a salary package that's far more attractive.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the momentum of where we're up with development applications and planning proposals and other bits and pieces, this is really to keep the business. This expenditure is asking for me to be delegated to expend this amount of money and make sure that the continuity of applications are processed. Your point of view in relation to applicants and recruitment, I agree with, and that's what's got to happen. But if I don't get to expend this amount of money and keep just the everyday development applications ticking through, it won't happen.
So, in regards to Councillor Beaumont's comment around June 30, so should that be put into the recommendation?
You can. I mean, what will happen is through the course of time, and it does depend on the number of applications processed. That's where the consultancies are charging per application now. So the workload and demand will command how much we expend futuristically. So, I mean, 1 July is a new financial year. This is council authorising expenditure up to an amount. How that is my delegation. Now, if you agree or agree with the recommendation, that's my delegation, and that's where it goes to. How much is spent up until 30th of June and how much is spent post-July. Hopefully I'd have a planning manager and we'd be reducing these costs, and the 500 might go further into July. But the request is an expenditure amount of $500,000.
Yeah, so Councillor Beaumont's point was about timeframes, and if we were to go with that suggestion, then it would need to be put into the recommendation that it's $500,000 ex GST to be expended by the end of before whatever's left unspent at June 30 comes off that. And if the general manager is in a situation whereby further funds are required into the new financial year, that you need to come back. I think that was the intention, wasn't it, Councillor Beaumont?
I think what the general manager just outlined is the quantum of funding that we approve if it's expired before June 30. I guess he's coming back to ask for some more money, and if it's not, then it carries on beyond June 30, and so no one's the worse off. I mean, you've got to remember that this business is a function of we don't know, or the planning department don't know what applications are going to appear in the next 3 months. So I just want to add that it is no secret that the business has been under pressure, but if you go back to the adoption of the new org structure in July 2025, some of those positions have been filled. We have got bums on seats, excuse the French. We've got people here doing work. The view was to leave no stone unturned with how can we service our community in terms of processing development applications. And I think it's fair to say we've followed the J curve. We've been through the worst of it. We're now working our way through and getting those timelines down. So the $500,000, just from my perspective, whether it's spent by the end of May or the end of July is not really the critical issue. It's are we keeping up with the public expectation as a business to service what they're needing from council.
Are we keeping up?
With the use of these consultants, where in the mayor's words, the J curve was just starting to improve on things as we speak. I mean, in demonstration of that is that Mr. George Canende is now back in the office and full time. The coordinator's position, Chloe Stevenson's been appointed, and we're seeing some benefits around those two positions just being here in the building, to be perfectly honest with you. So I can see that the momentum will continue to improve by default of the actual, again, the mayor's word, people in their places is making us more functional and more effective and efficient.
A lot of progress has been made, and those efficiencies will be cumulative. So as we continue out the other side, it gets better and better. Councillor Nichols, you have a question?
I just want a question of the general manager, please. How does the outside person, the tender person, choose which cases they're going to take on? Because we've got half a dozen planning things there, applications been done under 50 days. We've got 170, and the rest of them are come up to 170 days. So how do they choose which ones they're going to?
Yeah. So the first point is we're obviously playing catch up. So since the coordinator's position has come on board, there is a real allocation of applications go to either George or consultant 1, 2, or 3. Or whatever else. So the allocation of DAs maybe depend on complexity, location, or whether they go to an external consultant or stay internally with us. So that wasn't a process. What happened, I was away for 6 weeks or thereabouts, and before I did that, I engaged an external consultant, and there was staff resourcing of lesser capacity than what we needed, and all the applications went to that external consultant because I didn't have George in the office. Terry was on leave. And other bits and pieces. That game has now significantly changed because they're all present.
So they don't go as they're received.
Yeah, they do now, but they don't go into one bucket. We share the load across different consultancies or different staff members.
It'd be nice to get down to 30 days we looked at some years ago.
The good old days, Councillor Nichols, they're long gone.
Thank you. Councillor Starrick with a question, or are you speaking to the motion?
With the question, I'm presuming that because we had budgeted for our staff to be in place, from a financial perspective, we've been carrying some vacant roles. So there'll be a financial offset of the staff saving against this 500,000. So you've got the staffing component, which is in credit, and the materials component, which is now going to be in debit. I just wanted to.
300. Simon's nominated in there with the numbers of 350,000.
Probably more than this. I actually don't think that the coordinator's role in there, and that was vacant till November or December, so it's probably another maybe.
So it's not.
20 grand or
Yeah,
something.
it's a very good question. Thank you, Councillor Starrick, and thank you, Director Rule, for filling that in. This isn't asking for additional cash. This has been partly absorbed by the wages that we have in play. So, yes.
Thank you. Good discussion to have had. Business improvement is underway. If there's no further speakers to the motion, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Item 9.4, midway service delivery options. There are a number of options. I'll seek a mover. Councillor Nichols.
I'd move option 2, if I may, which is the reduced operating hours. And I say that because I think we need to have the people there. It wasn't actually, the place wasn't actually set up originally to be just a library.
Okay, I'll seek a second at Councillor
Okay,
Nichols, and then you can speak. Councillor Weeding.
Yeah.
We have a second at Councillor Nichols.
It wasn't set up to be just a library. It was set up for more than that. We took a bank on and so on and so forth. We've got a local member. She's still sitting there. For these sorts of things. And I think if we go back to where it turns out to be a library, it's going to be a very, very expensive piece of real estate that we've spent a hell of a lot of money on for a library.
Thanks,
Just
Councillor
a
Nichols.
point of clarification. Acknowledging your seeking option 2,
Yes.
the tenancies will still remain as best we can, and probably put more in there if we can.
I would hope so.
Yes.
I'd like to see it bulging at the seams.
But yeah, if there was other members of parliament, like government agencies or offices or whatever else, there's sort of quadrants of the building that accommodate tenancies.
Councillor Rodder speaking against. Thank you.
There's a number of concerns in regards to reducing the operating hours of the facility. So there's various groups which use that facility, the Tai Chi, Pilates, Lady. Reducing hours reduces access, presumably, because there'll be nobody there to let these people in. Basketball, for example, they have extensive use of their facility. Has there been any consideration of other options? So Baronga Golgol area have been screaming for access to an RMS agency, rather than having to drive all the way to Wentworth or rely on a once every quarter services bus that comes to the car park there. Potentially, is there an opportunity there to investigate other agencies to be available in there? Have we approached RMS about having an agency at the Midway Centre, for example?
Your manager.
Not in this time frame. When what would have been three years ago, we were looking for opportunity for tenancies or using our staff as agency staff to deliver on whether it's licensing or registration or whatever else. And unfortunately, it was nearly blackmail. Or if you want the agency there, it won't happen in Wentworth. We won't duplicate the services at both ends of the Shire. Was pretty much what I'm openly telling you. That was the inquiry that we made probably 3 years ago. Hasn't been made in recent times.
Yeah, so I'm not suggesting that Wentworth should lose their RMS, but the fact of the matter is that you can't go to RMS in a lunch hour if you live at the other end of the Shire, because by the time you drive out there and then drive back again, you've lost an hour for a start without the waiting time. And I'm not talking about a full RMS office there, but 2 or 3 days a week to have RMS available at the Midway Centre. I think that reducing the operating hours of the facility also reduces access to the community and potentially users of that facility, which is what it's meant to be there for.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. Anyone like to speak for the motion?
I was going to ask a question if I can.
Sure.
Just,
Councillor Beaumont.
so the way I read this this agenda item, option 3, which is the recommended option, I think allows for some customer service via the library staff. So it's not a, whilst it's worded in terms of a dedicated or library only, there is still the ability to provide some level of customer service and referral onto psychiatric here in Wentworth or whatever the case may be. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is correct. It was never to say, no, you can't go there and pay your rates, or no, you can't go there and register your dog. It's there to say that instead of having a resource allocated specifically to customer service where we're only 18 walking in 3 months or thereabouts, if you walk in and do that, there would be, whether it's through Teams or phone calls or whatever else, you present to pay your rates. And yes, Mr. Beaumont, we're happy enough to accommodate that, patch you through to this office, and the receipting is done by card transaction. It's a little bit different and more complicated if there was a cheque or cash on hand, but
Which you potentially need more staff in that sort of scenario. And I don't sort of like the idea of reducing customer service at the Midway, but when you look at the statistics provided, you know, just on a monthly basis, when you break it down, like in November, the daily visitation was an average of 8 phone calls, 1.45 phone calls in a day.
and with respect or clarification around that, that's not the phone calls going to Midway. They're looping through, starting, we've only got one central number, and they're the overrun. So all,
Okay.
yeah, so
Well, in which case they're only picking the phone up 1.5 times in a day. Is just my point. So there's very little.
Councillor, thank you.
So, and even if you look in January, I mean, there's, you know, for the whole month, 37 visitations to the Midway, or 9 phone calls picked up. So, you know, there's not a great need, it appears.
However, can I just jump in there, please, Brian? So in regards to that, sorry, Mr. Mayor,
well,
are you?
we're actually debating option 2 at the moment,
Which is the reduced hours.
which is the reduced hours. So if we can come back to that, unless somebody wishes to propose a different one.
There's something I need to ask. There are no figures in there saying how often libraries are used in each place. Please, that would be something, because they're saying there's enough market people up there, and older, younger people don't use the libraries as often as. So that would be interesting as well to see whether the library figures maintained.
What we've seen in the library services is, with respect, it's not the everyday borrowing of books, it's programs, it's kids going in there and elderly coming here and technology classes being run by our library staff and other bits and pieces. It's sort of the add-on. The library, with respect, is no longer just borrowing books, it's whatever else. It's sort of programs and engagement with community for needs basis, whether it's, you know, one day I walked into the library downstairs here and Eco were there, and there was snakes and lizards and all kind of things. So there's programs. It's more a space for accessibility to programs and educational needs and from all ages.
Safe spaces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, we find that the libraries are actually used as meeting points for people or for families who've got custodial. So they'll use the library. So father or mother has their dedicated time with their child, and they actually use the library as that safe space to have that contact.
I know the old knitters sit down there and knit and read the paper.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's the nature, and that's a service that we provide. I mean, in the heat wave, come in and sit around the library and read a book, or yeah.
So if we go back to historically before the library moved to Midway, and it was around near the bakery, it was only open 19 or 20 hours a week. when we moved to Midway, because we were going to be running a customer service centre there, both functions the library functions were extended. So, talking with the library staff, they get people come across from the Mildura Library because we offer services at the Mildura Library. We've got the TV and the soundbar, so kids like to come in and play the Xboxes and just watch things, but there's no space for that at the Mildura Library. So it's those little sort of add-on things that the library provide outside what was traditionally borrowing books and things like that.
Thank you, Director. So in the interest of moving this forward, rather than speak against the motion, I'm actually going to propose an amended motion, and that is to support option 3. If anyone would like to second that. Councillor Starrick, thank you. I'll just speak briefly to this. I'm not in favour of reducing operating hours for what we've just discussed around the library access. A lot of young families over in that area, and I think that they need access to the library. One of our objectives with regards to our strategic plan, objective 4.4.2, retain, engage and develop staff. I notice that we have one of the cons in terms of continuing current operations is requirement to recruit and train a replacement customer service officer following staff departures in October 25 and January 26. Perhaps the General Manager could allude as to why it's difficult to recruit customer service staff there, but I would imagine that the data we've been presented with, which demonstrates just a trickle actually coming in for non-library services, could be part of the... Is that too much of an assumption, General Manager?
I'd suggest that the exit interviews of the two personnel that left us on those two occasions, they were younger demographic females, and they indicated that the life just sitting there waiting for the phone to ring or someone to walk in wasn't their style. They wanted to be active and busy, and when they were rostered onto Midway, that didn't deliver any desirable outcomes in their future development and growth. So, in summary, Mr. Mayor, I'd suggest that those two young ladies were bored at Midway.
Thanks, General Manager. So, in wrapping up, I don't support reducing operating hours because that is taking service away from the people. I don't support continuing it at its current full service model where it's expensive and not that effective given the people who are choosing to not use the services. And in option 3, customer service officers would be required to train library officers. That's listed as a con. That is upskilling. I think that's actually positive. So we would be upskilling our staff. Those who do want customer service inquiries can still have access to that, and I'm sure in the 21st century we can facilitate, whether it's video calls or whatever would be required, that somebody that can't or doesn't want to travel to Wentworth can do their business from the Midway Centre. It still maintains the core community service of providing the library, and I think that the catch-all in this is that it will be reviewed in 12 months and subject to community consultation and feedback. So I think it's a very safe option to go with. So that's it from me.
If I may, just the commentary around, so basketball will remain, the users, option 3 still has basketball remain, the users remain, the tenancies remain, and a limited customer service based on multi-skilling and upskilling the library staff, and maybe some rotational roster stuff of some of us that might work from Midway, but not customer service direct staff. So,
Councillor Starrick, before I go to you, would anyone like to speak against the amendment? Anyone wish to speak for the amendment? Councillor Starrick.
I think it maintains a nice balance of keeping the service open, and while the service delivery from a customer service perspective is in a different form, there's still the service being provided. So from that perspective, I prefer this option because it's got that nice balance.
Thanks, Councillor Starrick.
maybe into further discussion, Councillor Rodder's point of view, I can try and approach other agencies and see what options are available. within that.
It could form part of the review.
Yeah.
Councillor Rodder, you speaking against the amendment?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Councillor Rodder.
So, the services that are available at the Baronga Gold Island of the Shire are limited from a council perspective. I'm not sure that we sell what is available to do at the Midway Centre very well. Perhaps there could have been considered an opportunity to take some of the pressure off the customer service staff here. Can you find a direct line to call the Midway Centre? No, you cannot. It's extremely hard. Everything comes through the front desk there. So perhaps if there was a change in how the phone calls are processed, there would be more things for the people at the Baronga Centre to do in their rostered hours there. I think that it's a lost opportunity. One I brought to the Mayor's attention, I think the last heat wave, Mildura actually advertised for their facilities to be available when there's high temperatures predicted. We don't do any of that. We don't sell to our community the opportunities for them to seek refuge in our facilities. That facility is not well used because I don't think we sell it very well. People don't even know what's there.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. And with respect to that, I think that by cutting hours back, I don't think that assists in.
No,
in that
either.
Just one
General Manager.
clarification. We've got Shire Council circulated the Ambulance New South Wales Seek Refuge in a cooler space on our social messaging page. So in line with whatever Mildura did, we did the same.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak for the amendment? We've actually had two speakers for it, but we go third. Councillor Beaumont.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to pick up on some of Councillor Rodder's comments, and I think option 3 does allow for a review in 12 months' time, and I think that in this intervening period leading up to 12 months, there could be some work done in relation to what sort of expanded services perhaps could go to the Midway, what opportunities might exist to attract more visitations to that centre, and with the view of perhaps lightening the load here at Wentworth. I think there's potentially opportunities there that we just need to get a bit creative and think about what else perhaps could we do at Midway to keep that office open. So that would be my comment.
Thanks, Councillor Beaumont. Any further speakers against the amendment? I'll put the amendment. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Rodder?
I'm just abstaining.
Thank you for that. The amendment is carried. Correct. Yep. So you voted against, and the amendment is carried and becomes the motion. Does anyone wish to speak further to the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? That motion is carried. Item 9.5, monthly financial report, moves to Councillor Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, there may be some pushback on this. If the indulgence of my fellow councillors, if no one intends to vote against items 9.5, 9.6, 9.7 and 9.8, I would move all 4 of those items by exception.
Is that motion seconded? So item 9.5 to 9.8.
So all the finance and investment reports moving in one go.
Given there's 2 months of each.
I understand the rules allow for that only if there are no other councillors who wish to vote against any of them.
That is correct.
Nice reading.
Seconded by Councillor Crisp. Those in favour of taking them as a group? Those against? Motion is carried. We'll deal with items 9.5, 6, 7 and 8 together. Let's have a mover
We have a second, so we moved and seconded together. Move them by exception, that is.
We've moved to,
We move them by exception.
okay,
So they're all moved together in one go.
so they are all
Work your way
moved
through.
now.
Now you work your way through them in discussion, yeah.
Okay. Does anyone wish to speak to the moved motion?
Just a question if I can.
Councillor Nichols.
On 9.8 to the finance, the mayor, approximately 66,500 less than anticipated in returns. Did we get a loss in, we haven't had any amounts of interest on that?
No, it's just the cycle of when term deposits are, and because of the Christmas period, so we had to cut some. We had been structuring it so we had some investments. We had a number of investments sort of closing in the last week of the month, and then in the first week of the month. But because we shut the office on the 22nd of December and we didn't reopen until the 5th of January, we had to then have some investments come due before we closed, and then a number of investments come due after we reopened, which has distorted some of the figures.
And a further question on page 107. Oh, it's actually on 106. I don't know who's going to answer. Probably everybody can have a go. Unexpected grants are increasing month by month by month. What are we doing to see that our grants that we apply for and get are used in a better manner? They're used more quickly.
So that one went up because we received the block grant funding that we get from the state government. They give it to us in 6 monthly instalments. So we get the first one in July or August, and we get the second one in January. So they gave us $800,000 in January, and towards the end of January, to then cover us for the next 6 months.
But in general, as a comment, that's not the only grant we seem to.
Probably the main one that we've got left is that regional emergency roads one. So we're working. We've still got another 18 months to complete that project. So as you see, the main roads block grant funding went from, I think it was about $300,000 at the end of December up to the 1.1 million. The Crown Reserves Improvement Fund, the council signed off on the tender for that one, which is the rowing club one. They signed off on that in November, so works will be commencing on that. No, sorry, that's the ski reserve one. The flood recovery one is the one that they signed off on. So each one of those ones is actively being worked on at this point in time. So
we should see a reduction in.
Yeah, so taking the assumption that we don't get any more prepayments in grants between now and the 30th of June, the only one that we should have active at the end of June should be the regional emergency road repair one.
Thank you.
Councillor Weeding and then Councillor Evans.
The Crown Reserve improvement for the Astronomy Park, what's happening with that? Because there's 400,000 in there, that's not going ahead now, is it?
Yeah, they're doing rehabilitation works on the site. Jeff can probably explain that a little bit more than I can as to what they're actually doing.
So the rehabilitation work for the Astronomy Park's not going there because the lights
The
from the
lighting
hospital,
is from the hospital, yeah.
site light pollution.
Correct.
So is that 400,000 going to be used up in that rehabilitation, or
We'll use up as much as we can on that rehabilitation process, yeah.
and then what happens? You got to send the rest back on.
Whatever's left over will have to go back to, unless they allow us to reuse it. But we did ask that question a while ago, and they basically said no, because it was specifically for that reserve. We had to spend it on that reserve.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
That was question answered.
Excellent. Very efficient. John's hungry. Councillor Beaumont.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. To Director of Finance, our day-to-day liquidity is getting down a bit at 1 mil. I'm wondering whether any reimbursements, top-ups or grants that might be coming in to boost that figure a little.
Yes, we've probably got about 3 mil in grant acquittals that we're working our way through. So, hence why the unexpended grants has been higher and it is lower now. So we've finished off all the resources for regions programs and the local roads and community infrastructure ones. So we're in the process of quitting those funds at the moment. So there's about $1 million or just over $1 million there that we're owed as a final payment. We have an invoice in for the fibre optic project for the final payment there, which is about 1.25 mil. That was submitted mid-December, so I'm hoping that'll get paid shortly. And then there's a claim in with Transport for New South Wales for our quarterly payment for the work that we do on the state highway. So that's again work money that we've had to spend up front, and then we get paid for it. And then also too, I think we're owed a little bit of money for roads to recovery as well. We've spent $300,000 or $400,000 this year on roads to recovery, so we're owed. So yeah, it's $3 million, a bit over $3 million that we're owed. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Put the motions. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 9.9, quarterly budget review statements. We have a recommendation. Someone would like to move? Councillor Starrick, seconded Councillor Nichols. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Armstrong.
I have a question through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, to Director Rule. So on page 122, just the Tronox Mining Roads contribution. Is that an annual contribution? And how long does that continue for?
So this, there is an annual contribution. This one is probably a catch-up on a couple of years. And then we're currently now in discussions with them about future road, given that, operations have changed there, and what they're coming back to us with what. So between Director Gunn and myself, we'll be reviewing that. They'll come back to us with what their expected, vehicle movements and people travelling to site as part of the rehabilitation process they have for the next 2 or 3 years or whatever it is, and then we will renegotiate a road contribution going forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Bowman. Oh, sorry.
Break.
That's fine. Yep. Councillor Nichols.
Just on page 122, it's pleasing to the eyes to see landfill revenue of 1.669 million. Expenditure of only 262,000.
I think the expenditure is a little bit low. I'll have to go back and review that. But it's not quite as rosy as that, but it is significantly rosy. It is significantly.
I mean, I can only see what my rosy eyes see.
I did bright red rose.
I did. It was raised in another forum, and I have gone back and had a look at it, and I sort of looked at it and I thought that looks a little bit light on. So.
But my eyes would see that sort of figure. No, well, I mean, it's good to see, because it's one of those things that I've always said. You must make money on rubbish. Must make money.
Councillor Weeding.
Just expanding on that question there, the landfill operating expenditure of 263,000. Is that just the operating for the machinery, or it wouldn't be wages or anything?
That's everything. That's why that figure's a little bit low. So it's everything to do with running from an operations perspective. So wages, power, fuel, maintenance of the machinery. Interest repayments on our loans, all of essentially everything that goes from an operational perspective that goes into running the site.
Remember, that is the ended December quarter.
Yeah. So I think that figure should be more around about probably 400, between 400 and 500,000.
I was thinking it was a little.
It's a little bit low.
The director's committed to reviewing that figure without his rose-tinted glasses. Councillor Weeding. So, did someone else have a question? Did I notice? No. Okay. I'll put the motion. Those in favour. Just Councillor Beaumont. Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Item 9.10, quarterly operational plan progress report. A motion there to note the report. I have a mover, Councillor Rodder, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Crisp. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 9.11, reappointment of Audit Risk and Improvement Committee member. And we have a recommendation there. Councillor Crick has moved, Councillor Starrick has seconded. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Starrick?
Yes, I speak in favour of the motion, having worked with Caroline on the ARIC committee. Support all the comments made about her involvement and participation.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Any further speakers? Councillor Beaumont.
Yeah, as a previous member of the ARIC committee, I would endorse the comments of Councillor Starrick. Caroline Smith is a very professional operator and does a great job on that ARIC committee.
Thank you. Director Roy.
I suppose just one comment from me. I apologise, this should have probably been done about 7 or 8 months ago, but slipped the radar. So there will be 2 more coming. So the other two members of the committee, their terms are coming up in the next probably 3 months. So you'll see another 2 more of these come across your table in the coming months. I just have a question in relation to
Question, Councillor Beaumont.
yeah, the actual performance review is attached to our agenda. Is that available publicly? Because I'm not sure it's appropriate. It provides ratings. Yeah, point taken probably should have been under separate cover. Yep.
You get a report like that, I mean, you'd want to show the world. You get a report like that, you'd want to show the world.
Oh, yes.
But I know
Every report is glowing and there is personal
no point.
ratings and I don't think it's appropriate.
No, you're right.
Point taken.
You're right.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Alrighty, we're moving on to 9.12. I think there's a couple of folks have indicated they'll leave the room, so I'll just wait for.
So, sorry, Mr. Mayor, just before depart, so being that there's 2 members of council leaving for one particular request, will you deal with them individually rather than as a whole?
Just one moment. I will deal with it as guided by somebody who moves a recommendation.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we deal separately 9.12 with the Magenta Art Prize and then with the other items.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Beaumont. Thank you.
Now I'll depart.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. All right. Dealing with item 9.12 as it pertains to the Magenta Art Prize request. Would anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Beaumont.
Yes, look, I'd speak in favour of this recommendation to support the request for the ALBG or the Magenta Art Prize. I think the point to note here is that the under the heading of type of request, it's listed as grant, whereas in actual fact it's a fee reimbursement. So taking that into account, it's not really a cost to council other than an administrative cost in receiving and refunding if the motion is approved.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against? I'll put the motion. Those in favour of supporting the AIBG, thank you. That's carried unanimously, less the 2 councillors out of the room, which we'll now invite to return.
Tell Joe we pulled their funding. Just tell Joe that we pulled their funding.
Very brave.
A brave man or a stupid man, Crispy.
I guess the category is just because that's what it's considered by the.
Yeah,
there we go. Okay, welcome back. We're now going to deal with the other 2 parts of item 9.12, being the request from Wentworth Pioneer Homes and Wentworth District Rowing Club. Would someone like to speak in favour or against supporting those, please?
questions.
Yes, Councillor Beaumont.
So to Director Finance and Corporate Services, my understanding is that the rate reduction to Wentworth Pioneer Homes is it's an ongoing annual arrangement.
No, they have to apply. No. So what did they? So they can apply, and as the commentary says in the box, our funding guidelines say that we can only give them a rate reduction of 25%. Right. So hence that's how we've come up with the figure of 3,600.
Okay, so there's no commitment between Wentworth Shire Council and Pioneer Homes to provide rate reduction.
No.
So just so we're clear, at the moment we're discussing both together, unless someone chooses to separate the two. Would anyone like to speak against supporting these requests? Councillor Weeding.
I just asked the Wentworth Pioneer Homes, I thought were the ones over at Armstrong Avenue, but it's got here 71 to 73 Beverley Street, Wentworth, which...
They had two.
So that they're both joined together, are they?
It might fill us.
All right, I'm going to put the motion. Those in favour of supporting both requests? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 9.13, request for event sponsorship. Now, Councillor Evans, I'll wait for your departure. Temporary departure. Okay, seeking a mover, please. Councillor Crisp, seconded Councillor Rodder. Would anyone like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I think, Mr. Mayor, this is an event that has been held regularly in Wentworth and is generally considered to be a success and an asset to our local businesses.
Thank you, Councillor Crisp. Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Any further speakers for the motion? Councillor Rodder.
So the Country Music Festival is a very popular event across the Shire. I would question the two events held in the Wentworth Shire LGA though, because there were certainly more events held on our side of the river than that. But yeah, great festival with definite benefits to the region.
Thank you. Councillor Beaumont.
A question, can I just ask, thank you, Mr. Mayor, is there, can we confirm or determine the exact location of the Country Music Festival in Wentworth this year? Because I believe there was consideration of an alternative site other than the wharf.
Yeah, don't know, I haven't gone into those details yet, Councillor Beaumont.
So further to that question, then my comment would be that if an alternative site is selected away from the wharf Lawns area, it does potentially detract from the ability of businesses in the central business area to, I guess, profit from the event. If for instance, the event is at Junction Park, which is a lovely area and would be conducive to something like this, it does take people away from the pubs and cafes and takeaway, etc.
Thanks, Councillor Beaumont. Any further speakers for the motion? Councillor Nichols.
I'd just like to speak for it because going back over many years was significantly larger than it currently is. COVID knocked it on the head a little bit, and I think I congratulate the organisation concerned for again taking it up and running, because I think it can again increase in stature to what it was previously.
Thanks, Councillor Nichols. Any speakers against? Councillor Weeding.
Not speaking against, but just a question. That $8,000, is that cash or cash and in kind?
That's cash.
Because we do the stages, things like that, as bins and.
She's only asked for $8,000 in cash.
Sorry?
She's asked for $8,000 in cash.
And what about the stages? Do we normally do the stage down there? Or?
No.
There's a figure of 5,000, you're probably going to do that out of that.
This is a request for
Wentworth
cash.
Shire Council staff erect the stage down near the wharf.
So do we count that as funding in kind, or we just do it?
Parks and Gardens maintenance, I guess.
Usually we do count it as in-kind contribution. Whatever that adds up to, an extra $500 or something like that for time that the staff require to put the stage there and then remove it once it's.
Thank you. All right, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Might invite, thank you, Director Gunn. John, I'm anticipating.
Anticipated, Mr. Mayor.
What would you like to move, Councillor Armstrong?
Mr. Mayor, I would probably spend more time moving this than just doing what we do. I'd move that 9.14 and 9.15, given that they are identical reports for 2 consecutive months, should be moved in exception, as long as none of my fellow councillors wish to vote against either of those recommendations.
Is the motion seconded? Councillor Beaumont, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Armstrong.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Only as a comment, following on from the General Manager's comments earlier, that we're on the J curve and improving. I hope that we are, because some of these numbers in here are pretty disappointing. And talking to, prospective residents and businesses, trying to get DAs approved and the time it's taking has been pretty disheartening of late. But the fact that we are improving on the J curve, I think, is a positive thing going forward. So that would be my only comment on that.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Nichols.
The question, I mentioned that before, what the councillor has just said. Can somebody tell me what sort of a shed you get for 100,000?
A big one.
With a concrete floor.
About 85,000 of concrete.
All right, thank you.
Probably half the cost.
Thank you. Complete storage shed, Jackson Lane. 640 East.
Yeah, in the rural area, a sizable shed probably it has some level of storage for produce and other things in it. So it's a large shed.
So, yeah, I think just to reiterate the comments already made, things are on the improve, and there's no shortage of disappointing stories. But I want to thank the dedication of the planning team, who are in the process of turning things around. And as I said before, the efficiencies now are cumulative, and the DAs are starting to pump out, and that's what the community expects. And it's been a tricky period, and we're coming out the other side. So I'm really pleased to report that. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against this motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 9.16, the Road Safety Quarterly Report, October to December 2025. Councillor Crisp is moving, seconded by Councillor Rodder. Does anyone wish to speak to this report? No, I'll just mention, well done to our staff for putting on the Heavy Vehicle Drivers Forum tomorrow at the Cliffs Roadhouse, 8:30 a.m. till 12. And I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. All right, Project and Works Report for February 2026. Councillor Starrick has moved, seconded by Councillor Crisp. Does anybody wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Starrick.
Can I just ask a question of the Director of Works? With regard to the licence, the water licence for the Ivanhoe Road resheeting, is there a chance that the water licence won't come through in time?
That's a very good question.
anything's a possibility, I suppose, but indications are with regards to the discussion and the application that we would be hoping for a more positive outcome than that. But 100% surety is never there with this, but yes.
Is it a grant funded one that will roll over? It is grant funded, so if we have to roll that over, is that within the scope?
There's understanding, I think there's always possibilities for extension for extenuating circumstances and if things. There's components of that. We can make application for extension if certain aspects, critical aspects of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for our favourite report? Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There are several items on page 213 that said that they're virtually to occur in early February. Those items been finished, and I go to the pump station control upgrade, the additional inlet and tank pipe work to proceed in February, and then you go over to minor items to complete by February at the open spaces and Dawn Avenue drainage, Wentworth curb upgrades, extra work to be fine, that's okay. The camp kitchens, how much longer are they going to be?
Okay, so
Since we're now in March, close to March, any close to it?
I'll attempt to provide a response to all those. So certainly the works at the water treatment plant, all those tanks are now in place. The upgrade for the control and the new manifold is currently being manufactured and will be. Well, they're actually doing that work at the moment. So the expectation is that will be completed at the end of February or at the latest first week of March. Trying to remember the other items. I think certainly the open space works in Dawn Avenue is fully completed. I think there's a couple of photos in the part of the report, but they might have been taken prior to the end. But certainly all the open spaces area is fully completed with all the pathworks, all the seats, all the shade structures, the planting, irrigation and revegetation and grass is all completed. I'm sorry, and I forgot the last one. And the curb upgrades, yes, so the works packages for the curb upgrades saw those the other day, so I expect them to be tendered out certainly prior to the end of February. So they're just the final documentation being put together.
Okay, and one final thing which shouldn't be too difficult, Junction Island viewing platform signs have been installed and the bench seats are delivered, so that shouldn't be too difficult to happen.
Yes, I can't confirm that it has happened, but at the time of writing that report, so expectations that it would be, I'm happy to take that question on notice and confirm that the installation has actually occurred.
Should drive down, shouldn't
All right, Councillor Beaumont.
Yes, to Director Gunn, could we have a little more explanation around the Cadell Street shared way? You know, just what side of the road it might be on, how it's going to be constructed, etc.
Yeah, look, I'm probably don't have those full details with me at the moment. I'm happy to provide you with an update on the specifics on the construction and the location and alignment for the pathway. It does have, as you're well aware, there are some constraints and challenges which is currently being dealt with, but I'm more than happy to provide you with that detail after the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In regards to the Queensbury and Wentworth Camp kitchens, outstanding defects remain for both kitchens. Can you give us some information on what the defects are?
They come in under the defects liability. They're not actually. It's probably a bit of incorrect wording there. With some minor still building related works with regards to some flashing and still whether it's flashing, spouting, some minor things to get done as I think maybe I recall. I think the build was right up until the 11th hour. So the buildings were completed, given the sign off for occupancy and use, subject to the completion of those minor items.
Yep.
And they are the things that are currently being and are being finalised and completed.
Yep. So just in regards to the Dawn Avenue drainage basin, whereabouts is that located?
It's probably as you turn off the Sturt Highway onto Dawn Avenue, go up past Wood Street, and it's probably 200-300 metres past Wood Street on the left-hand side.
Before you get to Pittman.
It's nearly halfway between Wood Street and Pittman.
Okay.
So it starts there, and it flows all around I think there is a new subdivision due to be started shortly, and it flows around the back to what is going to be the Wilson's development and the back corner of the KLS development.
I had a look recent, had a little trot, beautiful path. The lawn was growing well, and the milk thistles were growing really well. Councillor Beaumont.
Yes, look, the comment I want to make, it's not actually part of this agenda item, but I did attend the Australia Day celebrations at Funkeri recently. The recently refurbished hall and kitchen, which is looking very, very nice. But one of the ladies on the PATA committee did point out to me that the power supply to the kitchen or to the hall is not allowing them to operate all the facilities within that kitchen. That the power supply is not up to running, the fridges and the stoves and the dishwashers and etc. all at the one time. So that might be something just to.
Is that at the hall or at the reserve? At the hall or the reserve?
The hall, sorry, yeah.
That was my question. Exactly, your question was my question. I've never heard about the hall. I've heard
There's power limitations at the reserve.
Yeah, well, there's power limitations to the hall too, apparently.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks for taking that on notice, Director Gunn. Okay. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. All right. We will go back in time to 9:18. 9:18, dwelling with garage and swimming pool, and we have a recommendation. Would someone like to move? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Seconded, Councillor Crisp. Would anyone like to speak for the motion? Sorry, this is a late agenda item. It might be in the front of your
Very front, Councillor.
your package.
Councillor Nichols can have mine if you want to have two.
Very good shot.
Thank you.
Somehow ended up with two.
Well, I ended up with two, and then I brought it to Dale's attention. She said, "Oh, it's
I
John."
haven't seen it.
All right. So we're dealing with item 9.18, dwelling with garage and a swimming pool, and it has been moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Crisp. Would anyone like to speak for the motion? Anyone against the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? And as this is a planning matter, all votes for and against will be recorded. So we had one vote against.
I'm voting blind because I haven't read it.
Thanks, Councillor Nichols.
So,
So all for, Councillor Nichols against. Appreciate that. Fair enough. Righto, we're going to move back to the pack. Item 10. Notices of motions or questions with notice. First up we have item 10.1, the PS Ruby Future. Councillor Weeding.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move an amended motion that Council prepare an appropriate plan and allocate a budget of $50,000 this financial year to stop the Ruby as an iconic Shire asset from falling into a further state of disrepair and further degradation. Also, the Council undertake an assessment report of what the future works are required to make the vessel accessible to the public.
Thank you, Councillor Weeding. Does our minute taker have a copy of the amended motion? Thank you. Is the motion seconded? Councillor Crisp, thank you. Would anyone like to speak for, well, Councillor Weeding, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, the Ruby's a significant piece of heritage and the only authentic physical surviving remnants of the Murray-Darling trade era left in our Shire. Built in 1907 and used for passenger and cargo, Ruby reflects the social and economic history of inland New South Wales and our local Shire for that era. As a surviving historic vessel, Ruby can be used for educational programs, school visits and cultural interpretations. In the past, locals have supported the Ruby, including petitions and community events, showing a strong public attraction and cultural significance. Ruby is listed as a major heritage attraction at Wentworth and draws visitors interested in river history, contributing to the local tourism economy. Making Ruby a viable tourist attraction will work hand in hand with our other attractions such as the new VIC downstairs, FOZO, the upcoming Early Settlers Museum, Wentworth Military Museum, our new caravan park, Trentham Waters Estate, and other local natural attractions such as Perry Sandhills and Botanic Gardens and Mungo. We could establish a Riverboat Hall of Fame there for past riverboats and captains that have graced this area using the empty cabins on the Ruby as a living museum. This will minimise cost and give more bang for our buck. It'll help make Wentworth Shire a destination rather than just a stopover on the way to somewhere. And without ongoing maintenance, historic vessels like the Ruby will deteriorate rapidly, can become unsafe and potentially leading to a loss of the asset entirely. This has been a practical concern. Okay. And restoration and operational efforts, regular maintenance is not a cost, it's an investment in the Wentworth Shire's identity and pride.
Thank you, Councillor Weeding. Well, that last part, that's a zinger. Regular maintenance is not a cost, it's an investment. I like it. Could I just see, sorry, could I see the second half of the amended motion? Just because I might have a question.
I've got a copy of it if you want it.
It's okay. Further, you're seeking an assessment report, okay. I'll tell you what I'm thinking about as I absorb this new information is how it would potentially conflict with the motion we endorsed earlier or the minutes we endorsed earlier in the meeting, and just on the fly, I don't think it does. So I'm speaking in favour of your motion because you've asked for a budget to actually be spent this financial year on maintenance. So none of that would prevent, it wouldn't contradict anything in the earlier motion, would be my reading of it. Anyway, I apologise because I've spoken for and I haven't sought anyone to speak against. So are there anyone wish to speak against the motion?
Got a question in
Councillor
regards to the recommendation. So to allocate a budget of $50,000 for this financial year, so where did the figure of $50,000 come from? Will that be sufficient to halt the degradation of that? Is that going to be enough? Is it too much? Is there any indication on the amount of work that needs to be done to achieve the outcome that's been asked for in the recommendation?
Is the seeker seeking to respond?
Yeah,
Councillor Crisp.
I'll respond to that. There's a number of items there that haven't had some maintenance for a while. I think it'd be very wise to make sure that the bilge pumps are all working. Bilge pumps are something which I'm sure Councillor Evans will tell me have a limited life in their environment. And last time I was there, the pigeons are back, and that too presents a cost to have the pigeons removed and their calling cards removed, and to generally start to do enough that it's for the work that the Heritage and History Committee are going to do, that they can actually set foot on the vessel itself to look around. And last time I had a look, there are some parts of the waterproofing on some of the decks that probably need some attention. So that's my passing assessment of what's required, and that's is a figure that I think would be required to get it at least accessible for us to look at what's going to be the greater needs of that vessel over time.
And that was I just wondered how the $50,000 figure was kind of ascertained. So there has been some preliminary investigations.
A guesstimate, as best I could describe it.
Because we all know that $50,000 doesn't go very far.
No, and it's a tidy up so that we can get on board to move around to make a more thorough assessment.
Councillor Evans, you're the boat expert amongst us.
No.
All right, so I'm going to move the debate rather than a conversation. So would anyone like to speak for the motion? Against the motion? Or any structured questions that can be referred through the General Manager?
Oh, I think,
Councillor Beaumont.
if I may, in the interest of clarity, the motion is not including options A or B, is that correct?
That is correct. Councillor Weeding's moved an amended motion. Yep. That's correct.
So I guess my comment going on from that would be that to provide an initial allocation this financial year of $50,000 is a very good step in the right direction. But I think we need to be given consideration to an ongoing allocation into future financial years to maintain that vessel, so that we don't find ourselves in the same situation in 12 months or 2 years' time.
Yeah, Councillor Beaumont, I quite agree, and I apologise. I jumped ahead before and didn't seek an opposing view, but you're exactly right. It doesn't conflict with the other asks of council. The heritage listing, it's not in conflict with that. It's not in conflict with coming up with a longer term plan. It does get the ball rolling, and as I see it or read it, make it accessible, if not to the public, certainly to volunteers or the Friends group sooner rather than later. So those safety assessments can be done. Councillor Rodder, speaking against the motion.
Further clarification. So if we're moving with the amended motion to allocate $50,000 in the budget this financial year to that, the question needs to be asked of the Director of Finance, how are we going to fund that? And which bucket are we taking that from? What implications does that have, if any, on other budgetary items?
Good question.
I'll have to go and have a look and see where if we can, if there are some savings that we can find elsewhere and add it to the list
You
of.
haven't got a bucket, you just keep spare out the back.
No.
So I think, although I really appreciate and support the intent of the motion, probably it's a bit difficult to say, yes, let's plonk $50,000 without having an understanding of the implications of that from our budget perspective. What else are we cutting? Where's the money coming from? What programs? Which services can we not supply because we've pulled $50,000 out of a budget that's already set?
Thank you, Councillor. Did you have any further response?
Not at this particular point. I think Councillor Otter has made her point.
Thanks,
Well,
Director. Just go to Councillor Evans and then Councillor Nichols. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, for the I guess just for the public record is that we're probably chasing the horse up the paddock, and that's a pretty that's my analogy at the moment. And $50,000, okay, where does it? That's my question. Where does it come from? We seem to be making these decisions to arbitrarily throw a life buoy into this, but you know, 5 years ago, this opportunity was asked about and it wasn't responded. I think we're a long way behind where we should be. You know, I'm constantly asked or pointed to as the expert on boats. I know one thing about boats, and people know about old houses. If you don't look after them, we're in for a shock. And that's, I guess, a comment about number one is budget. The Ruby need a budget, needs an ongoing budget, not just to throw a few dollars in the hat. Because yes, it doesn't go far, and we need to develop a real plan if we're going to pursue that. That's the comment I'd like to make anyway.
Thanks, Councillor Evans. Councillor Nichols.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, the $50,000 is only a very, very small amount, and I think what Councillor Evans says is right. I think it costs considerably more than that to do anything, but a lot of it comes down to the final decision of whether we get heritage support, whether the boat stays in water or out of water, because in water the cost will certainly be higher. And the only comment I would like to make apart from that is to the financial manager, what do we specifically put our interest bonanza that we get on from our shares to? Is that used for bits and pieces? I mean, is that the bucket?
Oh, it gives us discretionary expenditure that if we didn't have it would definitely make the budget a lot tighter. But as Councillor Rotter succinctly put, you know, I do need to go back and have a look and see, you know, if we do have some capacity within that to do it, or are we not going to do something else in order to find that $50,000?
Yeah, I think it'll only just get rid of the birds. Pitch and pie.
Thank you. All right. I think I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Rotter against?
No, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I did vote for the motion, and I'm hoping that Simon can pull a rabbit out of a hat.
Okay, so in that case, it was passed unanimously. Thank you. Righto, we'll shoot over the page to item 10.2. This was a question with notice, so that is there for your information. Early Settlers Museum and PS Ruby Future. So there's two questions from Councillor Evans and a response from the appropriate officers. Thank you. Would you like to speak to those, Greg? It's not something
I think
we're going to.
the question's been answered satisfactorily with the question on on Ruby. It was just to keep the wheels turning on that one. I think that's we've discussed that in previous items. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear outcome from tonight that the committee will be calling a meeting. So, yeah, thank you. All right, we're going to move hopefully into confidential business. Councillor, yes, you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council adjourns into closed session. The recording of the meeting be suspended and members of the press and public be excluded from the closed session, and that access to the correspondence and reports relating to the items considered during the course of the closed session be withheld unless declassified by a separate resolution.
Is the motion seconded? Councillor Weeding, thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Can I ask the General Manager to please report on the outcomes of the closed council business?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In closed council business this evening, three items were under deliberation. First one being 12.1, being the panel contract where additional suppliers were approved by council. The supply list, they were KW Quarries Proprietary Limited, Sergeant's Pest Control, R&W Septic, Jim's Test and Tag will be added to the panel contract grouping. In relation to item 12.2, council approved the closure of a portion of the public road known as Potters Drive. It will be classified as operational land, and at the conclusion of that road closure, it will be acquired by an adjoining landholder, and they will pay all costs associated with the valuation of the land and disbursements for the legal transaction. In relation to the final item this evening, council has resolved to enter into contracts for the purchase of 14 Two-Up Drive, Baronga, for the purpose of establishment of emergency services hub. It's approved a purchase price of $655,000. Council has authorised the expenditure to be funded through a loan, and we also categorise the property as operational land, and we authorise the Mayor and myself, the General Manager, to attach the common seal and sign all documentations on behalf of Council. That concluded the business in confidential matters this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance tonight. Thank you to our directors. That concludes this evening's meeting, and we'll meet again on the 18th of March. Thank you very much.